Hello and welcome, I am Thomas Porteous and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. The Atlantic magazine publishes full signal chat messages revealing that its editor-in-chief did receive highly classified war plans from high-ranking US officials. President Donald Trump calls the scandal a witch hunt as pressure mounts over the ordeal. US President Donald Trump announces 25% tariffs on foreign-built cars and light trucks. The tariffs take effect on April the 2nd and add to the ongoing global trade war. French President Emmanuel Macron hosts the Coalition of the Willing Summit in Paris to support Ukraine's war effort. He pledges €2 billion in additional military aid to Ukraine and says it is too early to lift sanctions on Russia. Ukraine and Russia face issues in their truce agreement within hours of agreeing to a naval ceasefire. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says US negotiators will stand strong against Russian demands. As anti-government protests rage in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatens to seize parts of Gaza over hostages held by Hamas. He accuses opposition leader Yair Lapid of fueling anarchy. In the Gaza Strip, hundreds protest against Hamas in the largest demonstrations of their kind since the war began in 2023, demanding the group step down from power. The United Nations urges all parties to show restraint amid reports of first Vice President Riek Machar's arrest. This follows a UN warning that the country is on the brink of relapsing into widespread conflict. Brazil's Supreme Court orders former President Jair Bolsonaro to stand trial for attempting a coup after his 2022 election defeat. He faces 5 charges, including an alleged attempt to violently overturn democratic rule. US President Donald Trump has dismissed the controversy surrounding leaked plans for airstrikes in Yemen, calling it a witch hunt. He also defended his embattled Pentagon chief despite growing calls from Democrats for his resignation. Following on, we will deeply dissect these chats, but before that, let's listen to what Trump had to say.
Secretary Hegseth consider his position over the signal.
Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this.
Hegseth.
How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt.
The US Director of National Intelligence, along with the heads of the CIA, FBI, NSA, and DNI, testify before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence about worldwide threats. US Representatives Raja Krishnamurthy has strongly criticized the Trump administration and called for Hegseth's resignation. Let's listen in to what Krishnamurthy said.
This is classified information. It's a weapon system, as well as sequence of strikes, as well as details about the operations. And so I think that, just piggybacking off of what some other members have said, using the DOD's manual, as well as the executive order in operation today with the Trump administration, this text message is clearly classified information. Secretary Hegseth has disclosed military plans as well as classified information. He needs to resign immediately. He needs to resign immediately, and a full investigation needs to be undertaken with regard to whether other similar signal chats are occurring in this administration.
Top US intelligence officials face intense questioning from Democratic lawmakers on the House Intelligence Committee regarding a major security breach. Let's listen to what John Radcliffe had to say.
Those messages were revealed today and revealed that I did not transmit classified information, and that the reporter, who I don't know, I think intentionally intended it to indicate that. That reporter also indicated that I had released the name of an undercover CIA operative in that signal chat. In fact, I had released the name of my chief of staff, who is not operating undercover. That was deliberately false.
There are no texts discussing war plans, no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information, says US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, downplaying the significance of the leaked messages. Let's take a listen in to what Hegseth had to say.
Nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning.
Despite the controversy, the White House affirms that President Trump still has confidence in his top national security officials. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, when asked whether anyone would be fired over the leaked conversation about Yemen airstrikes, addressed the issue during a briefing.
What I can say definitively is what I just spoke to the president about, and he continues to have confidence in his national security team.
President Trump and top US intelligence officials are scrambling to contain the fallout from the scandal after a journalist was inadvertently added to this group chat. It was a mistake that a reporter was unintentionally included in a Signal group chat with high-level national security officials, says Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's Director of National Intelligence.
The advisor has taken full responsibility for this, and the National Security Council is conducting an in-depth review along with technical experts working to determine how this reporter was inadvertently added to this chat. The conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared. This was a standard update to the National Security Cabinet that was provided alongside updates that were given to foreign partners in the region.
And now in the third and possibly not final act of this, this ordeal, we will be discussing this further with our guest, Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist. First of all, I want to say, if you don't know what Signal is, it's a free open source messaging application that provides end-to-end encrypted messaging, slightly like WhatsApp. You can have group text, etc., etc. The journalist added was a man named Jeffrey Goldberg. He was editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He held the position since 2016. Gautam, before we go into these group chats, you kind of expect these chats to be held in some room, some locked room in the White House. How is it that messages like these are being done in a WhatsApp-style chat? It's crucial, important information like this.
Well, I don't know how crucial it is. Having read the pieces, I would say the most important thing is to keep the Red Sea open for commercial and military traffic, which is what the Houthis are preventing. The Houthis are certainly not a great big security risk. As various officials have pointed out, there is no specifics on when, where, how, only that it is going to be done. There's no secret there. It's been done a number of times, and it will be done again. The reason why this has been blown up is, one, Atlantic, I'm surprised, is a well-regarded magazine, at least in the past, and it is probably a sign of the times that it is trying to get into tabloid journalism now, because all that highbrow stuff is probably not selling. Coming to why Hegseth and friends are being attacked, it is a sort of a redux of Trump 1, where out of frustration, his opponents are trying to attack his officials. Now this time,
sorry, Gautam. I want to kind of I want to focus on the chat here. Okay, so I want to go into the first set of messaging where Secretary of State of Defense Pete Hegseth talks about how he's going to approach these Houthi strikes, which happened about a week ago. He talks about the fact that nobody knows who the Houthis are. He talks about that we need to focus on the fact that they are Biden failed. That's a number one reason, and the fact that they are Iran funded, number two reason. How does the Trump administration kind of play on this narrative of putting Biden's failures at the forefront of justifying actions like this, and also that the fact that these rebels are Iran funded, a powerful organization, a powerful country that is currently developing nuclear weapons, is number two?
Well, it's no secret that Iran is behind the Houthis. It has been for over a decade. The Houthis have been attacking Saudi Arabia, a U.S. ally, for as long as all that, and now it is anti-Israel at the behest of Iran. Everybody knows that, and it's common knowledge. It isn't a discovery. Why they have been allowed to proliferate and have missiles that can attack, American and other military craft is something to ponder over in terms of references to Biden. What did Biden do to destroy the capability of the Houthis? To some extent, he did attack them, under his term, but it was desultory and from time to time, and they didn't follow through. I think the Trump administration wants to destroy the capacity of the Houthis to menace and disturb the Red Sea and the shipping that passes through it. This is, proving very expensive for the world's commercial shipping, and also resulting in a lot of military craft having to be deployed there in order to deal with the Houthis. So to destroy their capacity to hurt the shipping and the military craft is rather urgent. And it is Iran that's behind it.
What I think is apparent here is that Joe Biden is mentioned twice in these messages, which you can see is in this one message in regard to a future project. It kind of proves how you kind of constantly see Donald Trump speaking against the Biden administration, even though he is president for the next 4 years, from everything, whether it's foreign policy to having the Declaration of Independence up in the office. I don't know if you saw that clip of Donald Trump revealing this thing behind the curtains, and him still saying negative things about the Biden administration. Anyway, moving on, I want to go to the next set of messages, which is includes messages from J.D. Vance saying, if you think we should do it, let's go, at Pete Hegseth, like this is a friendly group chat. I just hate bailing Europe out again. And then Pete Hegseth responds saying, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. What do you take from this, Gautam? What do you take from these messages here, showing that J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth's view of Europe is very, very negative thing, even in private?
Well, the fact is that NATO and the EU have been freeloading. I mean, most of the business and the banks in Europe are owned by Americans. The NATO doesn't pay its bills. It's now talking of, ramping up to a large extent so that they can conduct their own defense. But as long as they were able to get away with it, and nobody asked them to do anything other than being allies, at least in spirit, They didn't pony up. They didn't put their hands in their pockets. They didn't take out their wallet. As far as the work being done in the Red Sea and against the Houthis, against the Americans and the Israelis, it certainly isn't the Europeans, including Britain.
Yes.
Britain, I think, made one or two forays, but that's about it. Where's France? Where's the rest? Nothing.
I want to
So
now.
I think they're justified. The language they've used in their private, what they thought was a private chat, is a little strong and not very diplomatic, but it conveys what the American administration thinks of the EU and NATO Europe.
I want to now move on to the biggest bombshell that was dropped today. After multiple people from the Trump administration denying that that there was no war plans put into this group chat, including Pete Hegseth, the man who actually sent the message going off on the screen right now, there was in fact war plans put on the group chat. Plans that are very specific, going down even to the weather of where these strikes were going to happen, the weapons used. What can you tell me about, first of all, the fact that the war plans were put into a kind of app like this, an unsecure app clearly, and also the fact that these Trump officials have been lying, simply been lying about the fact that this information wasn't in the group chat when in fact it was?
I think the Democrats are planning to raise this in Congress and in the Senate. They are a little shy of a majority, but they wish to embarrass the government. That is why they're talking of Hegseth's resignation, demanding it. As far as conducting this chat on an unsecured signal platform, that is strange and a lapse, certainly. In terms of what intelligence has been leaked to the other side, I tend to agree with the Trump administration that it really isn't very significant and they can't use it for much. But to make a noise about it is only expected from the opposition that has been routed.
Gautam, this is obviously no longer a security threat, but Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, received these messages 2 hours before the strike happened. Then when he received them, they would have been a national security threat. Why hasn't anyone lost their job over this? In reality, in any other administration, a fumble like this would surely see someone be sacked. That being Mike Waltz, most likely, for he has taken full responsibility for these leaks. But Trump has said he doesn't need to apologize at all. What do you read from this situation?
What I read is that is exactly what the Democrats and the others who are against this government would like. So to give them the satisfaction of actually censuring, let alone sacking one of their own, is not likely. Having said that, they need to fix this sort of leak, and particularly adding the journalist. There have been a number of fumbles here, but it's not the first time. You've had presidents on open mic making remarks. George Herbert Bush, George W. Bush has been caught on open mic. Biden has been caught on open mic when he thought nobody was listening. He was saying things off the cuff, and it made the news. As far as lesser officials, secretaries of state and so on, let me remind you, Hillary Clinton did this on a unguarded email server, and a lot of it, this was with regard to Libya, and a lot of it as Secretary of State, and a lot of it was out in the public domain. And that was rather more dangerous because it was ongoing. And they lost an ambassador. American ambassador was killed in Benghazi.
But
And still, it was open source, as it were.
Gautam wasn't.
And so it isn't as if the Democrats are ever so neat. They've made mistakes of this order and ongoing mistakes, which I think will not happen in the Trump administration. Hopefully, they'll plug the leaks and be more careful in future.
Gautam, critics would say that this was also an ongoing situation, and if some other number was added to this group chat that was someone more threatening than a journalist unfavourable towards Donald Trump, this could have been a lot more serious. You could also critics are also saying that the person who is now being how do I phrase this? Is having all this negative comments about him, who was invited to this group chat, he's been protecting national security the most because he didn't share these group chats at the time he received them. He waited for this situation to be over, and the only reason why he released this message from Pete Hegseth was because Hegseth denied it, and he needed to hold the government to account in his eyes.
Well, Goldberg is a Jew himself, and he should understand that the security of Israel is something that America takes very seriously, and the Trump administration as well. I think he's trying to, sort of bring back the Atlantic into its former glory. Whether this is substantial enough to really embarrass the Trump administration, I have my doubts. This is why Trump dismissed it out of hand, and his press briefing, his press secretary did so as well. If there is going to be any talk in terms of censure or caution, it's going to be done internally and not at the behest and in front of the Democrats, or indeed the press.
All right. Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for joining us in that discussion. We move on now to some more news. US President Donald Trump has announced 25% tariffs on foreign cars and light trucks. The tariffs will take effect on April the 2nd, with duties starting the next day. He says the move is permanent and will remain in place as long as he is in office. He also plans to announce reciprocal tariffs on April the 2nd, calling them very lenient and applying to all countries.
So we'll effectively be charging a 25% tariff. But if you build your car in the United States, there is no tariff. And what that means is a lot of foreign car companies, a lot of companies are going to be in great shape because they've already built their plant, but their plants are underutilized, so they'll be able to expand them inexpensively and quickly. We're signing today. It goes into effect April 2nd. We start collecting on April 3rd. Signing a executive order today that's going to lead to tremendous growth in the automobile industry. Now, we're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades. So I think people are going to be very...
The announcement has already sparked strong reactions. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called the tariffs a direct attack on Canadian workers. He said that Canada will respond soon and is considering retaliatory measures. His government has already planned a package of counter tariffs worth 155 billion Canadian dollars. Carney also promises an all-in-Canada auto industry to protect jobs and reduce dependence on US manufacturing. Additionally, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the EU deeply regrets the decision and warned of negative impacts on transatlantic trade. Japan's government also criticized the move, calling it extremely regrettable. Experts say the tariffs could lead to higher car prices and disrupt the global auto industry. Many of America's closest allies, including Canada, Mexico, Germany, Japan, and South Korea, export cars to the US. The US imported $474 billion worth of automotive products in 2024, including $220 billion in passenger cars. Trump justified the move using a 2019 national security investigation that claimed auto imports threatened US security. Back then, he did not impose tariffs, but now he says it is necessary to protect American jobs and industry. Let's listen in to what Carney and Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba had to say.
We will build an all-in Canada network for auto manufacturing components. So what we need to do is build more of those autos and more of each auto right here.
私どもとして適切な対応を考えていかねばなりません。あらゆる選択肢というものは当然検討の対象となるものでございます。ただ私どもといたしましては、アメリカに対して日本は相当の投資を行い、相当の雇用を生み出しているということがございます。
Staying in the US, President Donald Trump is considering easing tariffs on China in exchange for Beijing support in a deal to sell TikTok to a US-approved buyer. The social media app faces a potential shutdown in April unless a sale takes place. Trump issued a delay on the federal ban and says he may extend it again if necessary. He emphasized that China will play a role in the transaction and hinted a possible tariff reduction to get the deal done. Currently, Chinese goods face a 20% tariff, and Trump is expected to announce new trade barriers in the coming days. China has warned that any sale must comply with its export laws, potentially giving it control over the process. The TikTok ban stems from national security concerns, though the company denies any threat. Trump previously delayed enforcement for 75 days, hoping to find a buyer. Here's what Trump had to say about the issue.
China is going to have to play a role in that, possibly, in the form of an approval, maybe. And I think they'll do that. Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, you know, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok, if you think. Every point. Tariff is a much bigger world, and TikTok is big. Tariffs is worth more than TikTok. So, in order to get China to do, maybe I'd give them a reduction in tariffs as an example. Sounds like.
Istanbul's municipal government has appointed Nuri Aslan as interim mayor following the imprisonment of Ekrem İmamoğlu on corruption charges. Aslan, a member of İmamoğlu's Republican People's Party, will serve for the remainder of the term as the former mayor awaits trial. CHP chairman Özgür Özel has vowed that protests will continue nationwide until either early presidential elections are called or İmamoğlu is released. The opposition is also urging a boycott of businesses supporting President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and planning a major demonstration. Meanwhile, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening defense ties and discussed future high-level engagements. We now move to South Asia, where Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reaffirmed India's strong relationship with Bangladesh. In a letter to Bangladesh's chief advisor, Mohammed Yunus, he sent his greetings on the country's Independence Day. Modi said the day is a reminder of the shared history and sacrifices that have strengthened ties between the two nations. He reiterated India's commitment to working together for peace, stability and prosperity. Indian President Draupadi Murmu also sent her greetings to her Bangladeshi counterpart. President Mohammed Shahabuddin, she highlighted that Bangladesh remains a key partner in India's Neighbourhood First and Act East policies. She emphasized the strong cooperation between the two countries in trade, connectivity, energy and culture. This letter by Modi comes amid Yunus's visit to China, which comes amid tensions with India, as his administration looks to strengthen ties with China. Over to Africa now, where Sudan's army says it has recaptured Khartoum International Airport, marking a major step towards regaining full control of the city from the rival Rapid Support Forces. Army Chief General Abdel Fattah Burhan returned to the capital for the first time in nearly 2 years, celebrating the victory with troops. The RSF is still believed to hold scattered positions, and the government has not yet declared full victory. However, officials called this a pivotal moment in the Sudan's war, which has killed at least 28,000 people and displaced millions. With the airport under army control, humanitarian groups may soon be able to increase aid deliveries to the famine-stricken country. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more international news updates.